Hello, welcome to this lesson. I'd like to introduce you to the world of HTML5 and, by association, of CSS, Cascading Style Sheets. My name is Rodolfo Novello, and I like to start by broadly describing to you what HTML5 and CSS are. As per Wikipedia, HTML5 is a markup language used for structuring, and emphasis on structuring, and presenting content on the World Wide Web. From the same source, Wikipedia, CSS is a style sheet language used for describing the presentation, and again, emphasis on presentation, of a document written in a markup language. So HTML emphasizes on the structure of your document, and CSS emphasizes on the way that document is presented. Okay? Semantics is the actual meaning or intent of the tag. Different browsers might interpret and present to the user a heading, for example, in a variety of ways, depending on the context of the browser itself. A PC browser will, for instance, represent it differently from a smartphone, or a browser based around a speech reader will possibly change the tone, the speed, or the volume to represent that heading. I'd like to show you how these two technologies work together so you can understand what everything I said means. Let me start by saying that HTML is considered a foundational topic, which means that's something that that we as developers must know or be familiar with. I want you to, well, first of all, let me show you what I have here. I have a file that is called Cervantes in Progress that has just some text in it. Let me show you what that text looks like. Okay, it's just a regular text file with a lot of information on Cervantes, and I took the liberty of using a little bit of HTML markup to add a couple of figures, and pretty much that's it. I want to show you step by step how to make this text file look presentable on a website. And let me show you what this text looks like as is. This is it. Okay, so not very much here. We have a title that says Cervantes in Progress for the file, and a couple of pictures and a bunch of text that is not formatted. So it doesn't look very good, and we want to do something about it. Okay? So first of all, let me tell you a little bit about tags. This right here is an image tag. Okay? You can see that it starts with a greater than sign and ends with the smaller than tag or symbol. Okay, there are many tags in HTML, and we're going to go through a few of them. There are so many that there is no way we can cover them all, but we can learn, and I'll show you where to get information from. Okay. Okay, now let me do something here. Let me start completing this this document with paragraph tags. Okay, so obviously this is a paragraph. And let me show you one more thing. You see how the paragraph is open here and it's closed at the bottom. Okay, So the most tags must be open and closed depending on their type, of course. Okay, like the image does not need to be closed, but the paragraph does. So let me add a couple of paragraph tags to the paragraphs on the page, so we can start seeing what happens. And I can assure you that these paragraphs are not going to modify anything on the on the way our page looks, but I will show you something that's really cool. Well, when we get to the CSS, but right now, let's just do this. Actually, I did take the liberty of adding the paragraph tags to most of the paragraphs on the text, so we won't be wasting too much time. Okay, so if we save it, let's save this and let's refresh it. We don't see much difference, right? Probably something moved here and there, but same, pretty boring, unreadable. It's readable, but it's not very nice to look at. Okay, let me tell you also about the minimum requirements of an HTML document. This document, I'm using a standard text editor. I'm using Linux on this computer, so we have a gedit, which is very similar to the Notepad in Windows, so you can use that one too. There are other editors of HTML that will give you formatting and to help you make it look nice. And I don't want to use it just to keep things simple, but let me tell you what the minimum markings are for your browser to really know what how to treat your document. The very first marking is this Doctype HTML. Okay, that is the very first one. That's you will see it all over the place, and there are a few sections that we must comply with. The very first one is the head of our document, which we open and close here, and probably the most important one is the body. Okay, and the body covers the entire body of your document. So let's add a closing body at the very end of our document. Okay, actually I missed one. The very first one right after the Doctype is HTML. Okay, we could add a property, for example, language. We can say that it's in this case it's Spanish. Yes. Okay, so we need to close this tag at the very end of the document. So it would go here, HTML. Okay, then going back to where we were, the body, which encompasses everything. Let's separate things here. Your entire document. Okay, so now we have body, HTML. So these are the main sections that we want to comply with. That's the very basic. Okay, so let's let's save it and let's reload it. See if there's a difference. No difference at all. Okay, still looks the same, nothing has changed, but now we have a complying page here. Okay, let me show you one thing. There are some validation pages online, and just to make sure that what you have is valid, and let me show you one right here. It's a validator NU. Okay, this validator NU. Okay, we can have a text field, and we can grab our text, which is this. If you hit Control A, Control C to copy the text, and then come into this area, you upload your text to this text field, and you go to the bottom and you say validate. Okay, so it goes through it and it tells you that there are some problems. For example, head is missing a child element called title. Also, the Cervantes headshot name for the file cannot have a space. So let's fix those two. We go over here, and our head does not have a title. So let's add a title. We open and close, and we call it Obra de Cervantes. Okay, so that one takes care of that. And right here, you see we have a space right here under the name of our file, and apparently it is not allowed. So we need to use the URL encoding for space, which is %20 instead. And let's do the same with this other image. Apparently I have an extra W there, but that's fine. 20, and there's a third image right here. Pound 20. So let's save and let's rerun it. Oh no, let's go to validation. Let's copy, Control A, Control C, Control A, Control V to paste, and we go to validate. Okay, so the document validates according to the specified schema. So this way we can pretty much verify if what we're doing is at least allowable by the schema of HTML. Okay, so let's go back to our file. There are attributes and properties to better describe the document, and they are included right before the head, the head opening tag, HTML, and inside of the head we can put the title and the character set that we're using. Now let's, inside of the body, which is our main the main body of our document, let's include a couple of sections. Okay, first let's add an article. Okay, an article is defined as a self-contained section of your document that could be syndicated. That means somebody can grab it, you could sell it. The interpretation is up to you, and actually let me show you where to get better information than I can give you on what each of these tags really means. Remember semantics before formatting. I can tell you that from the formatting point of view, there is not much that separating this in articles or sections will show as far as the visual. So we have that article, and let me just create another one. There's only two in this document. One is novelas, which is a genre of of a literary genre, and the other one would be poesía, poetry. So we have the two articles that we have defined articles within these tags. Okay. Now within the articles, we want to add sections. Okay. Actually, before we go to sections, let me show you this page. This is the site, or probably one of the sites. This is the one that I have found, that I have used for many years, that gives you a description of all of the properties and tags that are available. So for example, let's go to, okay, right here you can see it has the specification defines the 5th major version of the core language of the World Wide Web, the hypertext markup language. So it gives you a full explanation of what HTML5 is. But the table of contents has everything that you're going to need to modify, to control the way your document looks. Okay, in this, what I normally do is I go Control F, and then I type, right now we want section. Actually, we go the section element. Okay, so let's go to the section element, open link in a new tab so we don't lose our spot on the on the home of that page. And the section element represents a generic section of a document or application. A section in this context is a thematic grouping of content. The theme of each section should be identified typically by including a heading as a child of this section element. Okay, so from a literary point of view, this makes a lot of sense. If you know, as a programmer, you need to understand it at least on the surface, so you can give it to whoever, to your clients, and it's going to make sense to them. So let's separate our articles into sections. Okay, so this is the explanation for novelas, and then there is a section right here. Okay, this section that includes, okay, this is just a list of his works, so that can make a good section. And then we have the La Galatea section, which is another of his works. Okay, and then we have Don Quixote right here. So we close our previous section, okay, and open a new section. Okay, and the benefit of this will be apparent when we start working with CSS that we're going to touch in a few minutes. So please bear with me. And let's see, also, which is another section. Okay, so we close it right here. Okay, and we close our article. So at this point, let's save, and let's see if there's a difference on the final document. And actually there isn't. Everything is still the same, but now we have it broken up into articles, 2 articles, and several sections. Okay. So as you can see, we have here a Obra de Cervantes, which is the title, and a picture of Cervantes that I'd like to be the header of my document. So let's start by editing our document and modifying that section. Okay. Inside of the body, we want to create an age group. We want to group a couple of tags together, and to make our lives easier. And let me show you. Let me show you what I mean. Right here, we open it up and we close it. Age group, and we're going to include the picture. Let's put it inside of the group, and let's create another title. Actually, this is an H1. It's our header. Obra de Cervantes. Okay, and we open it up and we close it. Okay, and let's see, let's save, and let's see if we can see any difference. Okay, so we can see a little bit of a difference. We see here that the Obra de Cervantes has become the title, and that's pretty much it. Okay, now let me show you here, right in the middle of this section of the document. This is like a list of the sections that we have below. You see La Galatea right here relates to this one. So it's like a navigation list. So let's make it actually a navigation list. At this point, first let's make it an unordered list. Okay, so we open it there and we close it here. And then we want our list, our first list is going to be that one. We close it. Always remember to open and close your tags. Let me copy and paste. Will be a little faster. Let's save and see if we can see a difference. Okay, so this is what we got now. We got a list of the sections that comprise our document. So that's good. Okay. So it would be nice to be able to navigate to Los Trabajos de Persiles y Sigimunda, for example, without having to look for it through the document. So we can create what is known as a named anchor. And let's create the first one. Let's copy this text and let's find it. So let's start from the bottom to the top. So right here, you see the section right here, Los Trabajos de Persiles and Sigimunda. Let's mark this section as an anchor, a named anchor. We use the ID. It used to be name, so that's why probably they were called named anchors. But in the latest versions of HTML, it changed to ID, and then we can use that. Okay. So what it does, it marks this section with this name, and then we can navigate to it. And I'll show you how to do it. Right here, we can declare an anchor tag. Let's do it here, A, with an H reference of that. Okay, and then we close it at the end. We close the anchor tag. Let's save, and let's see if we can see a difference. Okay, let's refresh our document, and you see it becomes a hyperlink, and if we click on it, we should be able, or it will take us to that section, and it didn't, and I think I know why. I think we're not allowed to use spaces for the name anchor, so let's remove the spaces or add the 20 blah blah blah, but I think it's easier to remove the spaces. Okay, and let's do the same with the name tag. I should have copied and pasted, but that's okay, I'll go as fast as possible. Okay, we save and we refresh and we try to go there, and it is not finding it for, oh, I know why. Probably the spaces were fine, but we need to specify in our named hyperlink the pound sign. So this one should have resolved the situation. Let's make sure of that. And let's refresh, and let's go to that, and it does take us to the right section. Okay, so we can do that with all of the titles where we're going to go. If we add this href, let's copy and paste, that will be a little easier. Okay, so we have everything typed in. Let's save and see if it, at least it looks good, because I haven't created the anchor tags, but all of them, if you look at the bottom of the page, actually let me bring the bottom up. When we hover over the each one of the entries, you can see that it's trying to go there. Okay, so something really interesting to see. You see at the very bottom, I hope you can see it. Actually, let me make this a little smaller so I can bring it to the middle of the screen. Look what happens at the bottom of the screen, right there. You see how it tells you where that HTML is, and then there's a pound sign, and then the named hyperlink. You could give this URL, once you have it on your web page, that URL to whoever is going to consume it, and it will take them exactly to that one section of your document. Okay, it's just something to know. Okay, so now let me add, actually let me stop the video again. So this is ID and no pound. Okay, let's save, and let's try to navigate to each one of the sections. Let's go to this one. Perfect. Still not formatted, but it takes us to the right place. La Galatea should take us to La Galatea, which is correct. Novelas ejemplares takes us precisely to Novelas ejemplares. So it seems to be working fine. One thing that I like to do is include this list that we have here as the navigation area of the header of my page. So let's do that part so we can have it in a few different places so we can navigate through the document. But the main one is the header of the page. So let's do that. Let's go to the document itself, and we have our unordered list right here, and we can copy it and we can put it right here in our age group. And let's add the header tag. Okay, that's the header element, and it encompasses the age group. Okay, so we close the header. So now we should have the title, La Obra de Cervantes. We should have a picture, and we should have our navigation. Actually, let's use the nav tag to specify that that is our navigation. Let's close it. Our navigation element. Okay, let's do a little bit of formatting just for it to look a little nicer, so we can see where we are. Okay, so this is our nav, our age group. Our age group encompasses all of this, and so let's save it and let's see what it looks like. So let's go to the top. Okay, so now we have our navigation section right in the header of the document. Let me tell you one other thing. When you want to see what your HTML is doing, you can click the F12 key, and it gives you this section that analyzes, that tells you exactly what elements you're working with, and what values you're using for each one of them. Like let's right here under the header. Okay, this is the header. You see how it gets highlighted? Okay, inside of the header we have the age group, which encompasses the entire header, but inside of it we have an H1 element. You can also see what the styles are being applied and how to apply them to your elements, and that way you know what you can use, like display, font size, font weight. You can go to, if you go to the body, and each one of the components, like the navigation bar, we can go to each one of the elements, and it will tell us all the information about that particular element. Text align, obviously you can modify it. List style type, it is a disk, and we can change that to and we will this list style type. So you get all sorts of information in here. In case something goes wrong, you can see, you can get an idea of what's going on with your document. Okay, so that again is the F12 key, and it gives you insight on your document. Okay, so moving on. Okay, you see that this is the header. First, I like for my header to cover only 80% of the area available, and that is the first thing that I like to change. Now, at this point, I like to introduce you to a CSS file, and let's start by declaring inside of this document where the file resides. The way it works is we have two separate files. the HTML file, which is the file that we have here, and we have the CSS file, which is the Cascading Style Sheet file that has the style for each one of the components that we have here. Like we can style the body or the header or the H group or H1 or the image. Everything that you find here, or the navigation, we can style inside of the CSS file. So what we're going to do is we're going to create our CSS file, and we're going to save it as here we have Cervantes in progress. What do you say we call it? CSS in progress .css. Okay, so this is going to be our file, our two files that define what our document is, or the structure of our document, and the styling of that document. So since we have this file already there, we need to define inside of the HTML file where to find that document. Right next to the character set UTF-8, we can include the link that is going to link the two files. So the relationship between the two is it's a style sheet. The type is text, CSS. Href is the same folder, so we don't need to navigate to find it to any other folders. And the name of the file is CSS in progress .css. And the media, let's specify all. So that means it'll apply to every media where this page is presented on. Okay. So, okay. So now what we have done is inside of the head of the document, we have declared where our CSS file is. Okay, and it's right here. So let's start with the header. Okay, we want the header to be of width, to take only 80% of the available space, and we want the background color to be dark gray. Okay, let's save this and let's reload and see what happens. You can see that only the header has been affected by that change on the Cascading Style Sheet. Let's review it again. You see, we are taking up only 80% of the available space, and we changed the background color to dark gray. Okay, so I like that part, and but what I don't like is, you see that it's on the left. It's floated to the left. What we want to do is change the margin left to auto, and the margin right to auto as well. Let's see if that makes a difference. Save, and it does. It makes it go right in the center, which is where I really wanted it. Okay, now you see the navigation bar or section is below the rest of the components, of the elements in that header, and I don't like that. I like for that section to be all the way on the right. So let me tell you how to do that. Okay, so let's define a style for the navigation section. Let's define the width as let's say 50%. Okay, and float right. Okay, don't forget the semicolon. Save. Let's see if there's a difference. Good. So far so good. It moved the navigation bar or section to the right of the header, which is good. That's precisely what we wanted. So let's move on. So for the article, we also want the width to be 80%. Okay. I mean, you can do a one-liner if you want to. I like to separate my values in separate lines, just to keep it clean. Actually, let's go over here. There. Okay, width, and we want the background color. We want it to be light gray. How is that? And then we close it, we save it, and we refresh. Okay, so actually gray is darker than dark gray. So I'm going to change that. But look, you see it's taking up only 80%, and it's just not centered, but we can fix that real fast. Let's change dark gray, which obviously is not that dark, to gray, and this one to, let's say light gray. See if that works. Save, refresh. And yes, this one is darker gray and this one is lighter gray, which is fine. Now let's center it just like we did with a header. Let's define that our articles are going to be centered as well. So now it looks more like I want it to look. Now you can see that at the very edge of our document, we don't have any margin to separate the edge of the section or the area from the text. Let's change that. We can do it in different places. What do you say we do it for the paragraph? Remember, we have paragraphs all over the place, and we want our paragraph to have a margin of 10 points, 10 pixels. Okay, let's see if that does it. Save, refresh, and as you can see, now all of our paragraphs have moved 10 pixels from the left and also from the right, in case the letters get that far. Okay, so so good. So it's looking a little better. Let me show you another trick that I really like. I'm going to use something that's called level 3 selectors. You see how here we the last section we define the paragraph. We can be more specific. We can say first letter and define what we want to do with the first letter. What we can do with the first letter is change the font family to something different from the default, which I think is Roman something or other. Anglo text. Okay, in case it doesn't find it, we can use the regular Arial. Okay, in case you don't have angled text, or your client does not have angled text, it's not going to work. So it's going to default to Arial. If it doesn't have Arial, which would be very strange, then it would default to whatever the default is, which may be Times Roman. And we want the font size to be 3 times as large. Okay, we close it. So the first letter of every paragraph is going to be affected by this. Let's see what it looks like. Okay, so we save, we refresh, and voila, we have beautiful lettering adorning every paragraph in our document. Okay, so the document is looking a little better. We're getting there. We're getting there. And just like we did that, we can do we can control the type of font type or font family that we want to apply to the entire document. If that's something we want to do, we can do it like affecting the body, for example, or styling the body would be the right terminology. And we can say font family colon, let's say we want to change it to Arial, and if it doesn't find Arial, I don't know, let's use Anglo text, which may never be used because Arial always exists. And let's see what happens. Let's observe the type of or the font family that we have on our document, and let's refresh. You see it changed to Arial. So now the entire document is Arial as opposed to Times Roman, I believe it was. Let me also change the color of the text in our header. I like for it to be white. So we go to the header and we change the text color to white. Okay, so we refresh, and there you go. We have Obra de Cervantes totally white. Now, one thing that I like to do is have my images on the right hand side of the page. I like that a little better, and let me show you how to do that. We can style our images, and remember, an image, its tag name is img, so we type img, and we are going to style it right in here. And let me move it a little higher up. And I want to float it to the right. And observe what's going to happen. We save, we refresh, and look at the picture, how all the pictures move to the right. Okay? But then we have a big problem over here because the original picture moved and it just became a real mess. So let's see how we can fix that. We go to the header, and there is a property called overflow. If we set it to hidden, let's see if that solves our problem. We go to the document. It kind of did. Okay, it moved our image to the right, but at least it looks a little better than before, and you can see all of the other pictures are or images are moved all the way to the right, which is what we wanted. Now, I would prefer to have the header image all the way to the left, or actually, yeah, closer to the center of the header. So let's do something about that. And this is something that I really want you to make a note of, because we can specify. You see that all of the pictures in the document went to the right, because the styling element img here affects all of them. And actually, I like to separate them by, like, I like the one in my header to behave differently. I want it to go to the left. Let's say that, okay? So let's go to the document and let me show you where it is defined so we can see. Okay, you see that the image actually here in the age group, or our age group, has the image as a child element. Okay, so in order for us to affect that particular image, we need to specify it like this. You see how here we specified image that includes all of the images. We can be more specific. We can say age group image, and then format only the images that are inside of the age group. So let's say float left. We save, we look at it, and we refresh. And we have affected only one element, although it's part of the general element types of our document. So that is good. I'm really happy with that. So now let's do a little bit more tweaking with the pictures. I don't like that the picture is all the way to the edge of the document. You see, the picture touches the edge of the document. Let's change that. So we can define a margin, and instead of saying margin top, margin right, margin bottom, we can just specify all of them. So we want 10 pixels at the top, 10 pixels on the right, 10 pixels at the bottom, and 10 pixels on the left. Now let's see if we see a difference. We save, see if our pictures move. And yes, they have moved. You can see that now we have 10 pixels all around our pictures, which makes it look a little cleaner. Okay, so you know, most people are used to seeing a kind of a shadow, like the image is coming off the page. Let's do that part too. So we can specify box shadow. We save and we lock. Okay, cool. So yeah, you can see that the pixels on the left and the top are smaller than the ones on the right and at the bottom. And the larger one is the one on the right, obviously, or apparently. It could be. But one interesting thing is that the image, you see how right here, the definition of the margin for the image element bleeds into the declaration of a style for the image inside of the age group. So what happens is that there's a precedence to all of these settings, And obviously we are looking at it here. So we can see that our pictures look a little nicer, and we can specify the color of the shadow. Right now it's just defaulting to something that makes contrast with the background. You see how it defaulted to black here and to white here? We can be specific about what color we want, or we can leave it at that. So let's change it to something a little more specific. Let's go AAA. Okay, hexadecimal, some gray colors. So we save, we go back here and we refresh, and we can see that now it is a lighter gray, but it's the same on both sections, all sections of the document. Okay. Okay, so one thing I'd like to do is change the way our navigation area looks. I don't like the little dots on the left because it makes it look like a list, which it actually is a list. Okay, as you can see, we have an unordered list inside of our navigation element tags. So we can specifically target that list by doing this. Let me put it right in here. Okay, there it is. Age group UL, our unordered list. We want the style to be none. Okay, so let's save and let's make sure it works. And it does. Okay, now what's interesting is that we targeted only the one that is inside of the header, and this one still has the little markings. Okay, so this looks good to me, and it helps us navigate without any problem throughout the document. Okay, so it's looking a little better, and I feel a little more comfortable with the way this page is looking. And there are, of course, a couple of little things that we can still change. Let's change, for example, novelas. That needs to be a header. We close H2. So we'll see novelas changing. Okay, so it did change. You know what? Probably the header of the article, because you remember these are articles. One is poesía, the one is novelas. Should be in this type of lettering. What do you say? Let's do that part. So we can change all of our H2 elements. Okay. To a font family of Anglo text. Okay, and let's see what happens. It might look prettier. So we refresh. Oh, it's too tiny. Let's make the font size a little larger. Font size probably as large as the other one, 3 EMs. Save it, refresh it. It doesn't look good, does it? No, you know what? Let's probably just do the first letter just like we did before. So first letter. Okay, it's probably a small f. So we save and we see if it makes it look a little better. Okay, well, whatever. The thing is that you know, we want to look into, I mean, I want you to learn what options you have to move about and manipulate your document. Something we can do is probably change the font weight to lighter. Let's see if that makes it look a little nicer. If it doesn't, we'll leave it alone because it's not that important. Oh, look, it looks nice. How very cool. Okay, so Poesía would be an H2 as well. So let's change that real quick. Novelas H2. Here, Poesía is an H2, and it should look just as pretty. H2. And close H2. Okay, so it's going to look really nice, but let's just play a little bit with some of the different options that we have, so you get a little more exposure to what can be done. But right here on the body, let's create a okay. So border style, I want it to be solid, and border color, I like to be, let's say black, so we can see it. That's around the body of the entire document. Let's see what it looks like. Save it and look at it. Okay, let's remove the F12, and now actually I don't like it because the body encompasses the entire area of the document, and I wanted something more around each one of the sections over here. So let's do it only on where Novelas is, in that section, and let's see what it looks like. So Novelas, actually it's an article, so we don't want the border on the body of the document. So let's cut it from there. Now let's try it on the article. Okay, so now we have it here. We save, we refresh. I kind of like it a little better. It's not my favorite, but there are so many other things that we can do, and actually there is no time. I mean, actually I don't want to keep you so long here that you're going to fall asleep. So I wanted to give you an intro to both HTML5 and CSS, the Cascading Style Sheets, and so I guess at this point you probably have a bunch of questions, and I want to refer you to this website, https://www.w3.org/tr/html5, where you can find all sorts of references to whatever you might want to do with your page. There's a list of all the elements and attributes and what have you related to what we just saw. And as you can see, there are so many options that we cannot cover them all. Normally what I do, as you can see, I have several tabs open, is I go to Control F on this page, and let's say that I want to go to nav. So go Control F and type the nav element. If you say the nav, in case that NAV exists, you won't have to kind of fish it out. So, and then just right click on it and open up in a new tab, and then you can read everything you want to know about that nav element. Okay, there are some examples, and that way you can see what is available, how to use it, semantically what it means. Remember, HTML5 puts emphasis on semantics, or the meaning of the section or the element, more than the way it's going to look. Okay, you'll learn about it as you play with it. Another way of finding, like, sometimes you don't know what the possible values for an element are. For example, if you Google HTML font weight, it tells you that you have normal, bold, bolder, and lighter. So that way you can see what's available and what you can use. In this lesson, we have learned about HTML, which incidentally appeared around the year 1990, and CSS. We learned that an HTML document consists of a tree of elements and text. Each element is denoted in the source by a star tag, such as the P for the paragraph that we used, and an end tag, such as the /P, if you can remember. Some end tags may be omitted depending on the type of tag we're using. We learned that tags must be nested, as in the Cervantes image, that, if you remember, is nested within the H group element. We also saw that elements can have attributes which control their behavior, as in the anchor tags in our navigation section, if you remember. Also, we saw that attributes are name-value pairs separated by an equal sign and placed inside the star tag of the element. The web browser parses this markup and converts it into an in-memory representation of the document, which we call a DOM, which stands for Document Object Model Tree. If you remember, we saw that we can see what that tree looks like with the help of the F12 key. As a side note, this DOM tree can be manipulated from scripts, typically JavaScript, which can be embedded as a regular element, the script element, into the source, or as an external file, as is done with the CSS code in this lesson. We learned that HTML places emphasis on semantics, which is the meaning and intent of the tag, rather than on the formatting or appearance of the object. Unfortunately, for the sake of brevity, we did not cover elements like the input element, button, table element, among many others that might be of interest to you based on the demands of your project. When you look at the table of contents of the W3C site that we looked at, you can see that we barely scratched the surface of HTML. My intent was to give you a way into the realm of HTML and CSS, so you have the resources to dive as deeply as you need in your professional life as an HTML coder.